There's no sacrifice too great for my trade. So when my older brother called me up and was having kind of a midlife crisis, said, you know what, Ron? I want to spend about $70,000 to $80,000. I want to buy a high performance, two-door coupe, something that's fun to drive. So of course, I had some answers for him. So Michael, here's your list, starting with the Audi S5. Now the RS5 is coming, but it's not here yet. BMW M3, of course. Cadillac Cts-V, I want you to think outside the box. And of course, the Mercedes-Benz C63. So there's your list. We're gonna go one by one and explain the differences and what my top pick is. All right, starting in alphabetical order, we're gonna go with the Audi S5. Wonderful car, but the slowest of the bunch, 0 to 60 in about 5.5 seconds, but it's the only one that has standard all-wheel drive with a quattro system. So if all-wheel drive is important, the Audi S5 is your choice. Now the RS5 is coming, but it's not here yet. That should be a little more competitive with this vehicle, but right now the S5, I'm going to put it number 4 on the list. Next up is the M3. The M3 from BMW invented the segment. However, there's a new M3 coming. We don't know a whole lot about it, so you are going to be buying something a little bit dated. Nevertheless, it is the leader of the bunch. However, it's got a few issues. For starters, the torque. The torque is very high-end. So it really takes a lot to get that car moving. It's a great track car, but for everyday driving, you want to go 0 to 60, just pound it out. Not my top choice, but certainly I'm going to put it up there as number 2. Next up, we have the Cts-V Coupe. Wonderful car. If you're strictly about horsepower, you're talking over 550 horsepower, and you're willing to go American, that's your car. It doesn't have the chops that the C63 and M3 have. It just doesn't handle quite as well. It's a little bit heavier. It's going to flow a little bit more, but it does have the horsepower and it is a monster. I'll put that number 3 on my list. All right, so what's at the top of my list? Right here, Mercedes-Benz C63. That's right, 451 standard horsepower, but with the upgraded performance package, 481 horsepower. This thing is a monster. It's got a great transmission, a 7-speed automatic, but it's got a torque converter that just screams. And the torque is available at very low-end RPMs, so this car is really the fastest of the bunch. It's the most accessible horsepower, the most usable horsepower, and it looks great. I also think it's the most sophisticated. M3, sorry, but a little bit of a toy car. Now the S5 is definitely sophisticated, but it just doesn't have the credibility that BMW and Mercedes has. Cts-V, a lot of power, kind of American heritage, but not exactly the European chops to compete with the rest of them. But this car here, Mercedes-Benz C63 from AMG, number 1 on my list. Unique thing about AMG is that every engine is hand-built by an engineer. So there are 40 engineers at their factory outside of Stuttgart, and each one builds about 2 engines a day. Then they actually sign it. That kind of tells you a little bit about the heritage of AMG and the commitment that Mercedes-Benz has made to each one of these vehicles. And what we have here is a 6.3-liter, normally aspirated V8 engine, producing 451 horsepower, but with this performance package, 481 horsepower. It also takes the maximum speed limit up to 174 miles per hour, and I can tell you that this car can do that and more. We mentioned torque. Torque is what gets you up and running, 443 pound-feet of torque to move this car 0 to 60 in 4.4 seconds. However, with the performance package, 4.3 seconds. Not that fuel economy is important, but this car is rated at 13 miles per gallon in the city and 19 miles per gallon on the highway. I'm happy to report that I averaged about 12 combined, which means I obviously didn't take it too easy on this car.